Hey friends, over the years I've got quite a few requests to do a video where I show off my collection of plucked instruments. So, here we go. Now, without a doubt, this next guy is one of my prized possessions. This is a theorbo made in London by Klaus Jakobsen. It's a really fantastic instrument, and as you can see, it is currently folded in half, which is pretty impressive. He invented this mechanism which allows the instrument to fold, because it's actually, just like my arch flute, it's like 6 feet long. So it unfolds into its full, scale length, which is as tall as me, but then it's so conveniently, the strings too, fold up back in half, which means it can easily fit in a case which is about the size of a guitar case. And probably the most amazing part is the mechanism here allows us to stay in tune because the strings stay under tension, and that is just, I think, ingenious. Then a little fake peg here goes in so the neck can't collapse, and then you pull out this little piece here, and now we have the full instrument. This instrument is so satisfying to play. That low thump of those gut strings sounds so good. When I bought it, actually, it wasn't a folding instrument. He made it without the folding mechanism, but then I had him pick it up and he chopped it, added the folding mechanism onto it, which I really wanted. And then I happened to be touring in England at the time, and he has a shop in London, and so we met at the airport and he handed off the instrument. Unfortunately, the whole thing was really rushed. I really wanted to get to know him, but I just had to grab it and get on my flight because it was about to leave. So because of the folding mechanism, I was able to simply, very easily fit it into a seat next to me, and I've had it ever since and loved it. Another one of my favorites, the Baroque guitar. This is the predecessor of the modern 6 single-string guitar that we know today. I bring this instrument along with me when I play operas and chamber music and continuo, just like theorbo. So a lot of my Baroque gigs are a theorbo in one hand and a Baroque guitar in another, and I'm constantly switching back and forth depending on what type of sound I want to make. If in that moment in the opera I need a deep bass sound with lots of thick rolled chords, I pull out the theorbo, and if it's a dancey song that needs more of a strummy sound, then the guitar is perfect for that. So the two of those together make a really nice Baroque gigging kit. Out of all my guitars, this is one of my most sentimental instruments, because this is one of the guitars that I had made for me custom. Back in 2016, I commissioned a luthier in Malaga, Spain, named Julio Castaño Soler, who is a fantastic builder of Baroque guitars and vihuelas. And he was recommended to me by so many different professional players. And so I went to stay with him for a few days, and they were so nice to me. Him and his wife, Mariana, are wonderful people. Hi guys, if you're watching. And I just love this guitar. It is built with another rose design here with 3-dimensional rose, which goes deep into the instrument. Sometimes we call it a reverse wedding cake rose. Then again, of course, you have the movable frets, the pegs, which are on the back of the headstock this time instead of the sides. Baroque guitars have the hourglass shape indicative of guitars and a flat back rather than that round back that we saw with a lot of the lutes. So it really is like, the instrument that comes right before we get the single string guitar that we all know today. If you've been following my YouTube channel for any length of time, you will have heard this instrument quite often. All of my CDs and most of my YouTube videos have been recorded on this, which is my only other instrument that I've ever had actually custom made for me. This is a 2010 Stephen Chaconne guitar. Stephen Chaconne is a luthier in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's one of the best guitars I've played personally, and I would highly recommend Stephen Chaconne if you're interested in having another classical guitar, or having your first classical guitar even built for you. I had this built for me in 2010, right when I was starting my first degree in classical guitar. I showed up to my degree with a less than ideal guitar, a classical guitar that was really, it looked pretty, but it was mostly shiny finish with pretty mother of pearl inlays. It was a guitar that I picked up at Guitar Center. Nothing wrong with Guitar Center, but in terms of professional concert classical guitars, it's not really the ideal place to go. And I quickly found out when I showed up to my degree that it wasn't cutting it. So I had this made, and I've been so happy with it ever since. It has a flame maple back inside, which is just so beautiful. And it's so easy to play. Currently I have gut strings on, which sounds so good. I have nails again at the moment, and even with nails, the gut strings sound fantastic. A while back, I also picked this guy up. This is a Cordoba ukulele. And actually, it sounds quite good, I think, for the price. I picked this up because I was teaching some ukulele around town, and I wanted my own instrument to teach. But actually, I kind of fell in love with it, and I really get why ukuleles are making a comeback at the moment. They're quite trendy. But, you know, I think people think about them only as a self-accompanying, simple instrument. But, I mean, it's just basically like a Renaissance guitar, which has lots of solo repertoire for it. And you can do a lot of really cool things on it. You know, you can do strumming, you do tremolo. It's basically a small guitar, right? And so I think let's not undervalue the power of a ukulele. So I'm happy to have one sitting around to have fun with sometimes. My next instrument is one that surely doesn't get enough love. This one is the charango. I got this about maybe 10 years ago. There was a gig I was asked to play where they wanted me to play charango with a choir. Basically, the charango is native to Bolivia, I believe, and there was an Argentinian composer named Ariel Ramirez who wrote a piece called the Misa Criolla, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing. And yeah, there was like this folk band next to a choir, and they wanted me to play charango. So I learned this instrument then, haven't really used it much since. Normally, charangos have a armadillo shell for a back. This one, I'm happy to say, is just made of wood. And other than that, it's kind of like a little guitar, right? All the strings are doubled. Surprise, like a lot of my other instruments. And then we have actually gears, so not the pegs on the lutes and things. And then, of course, metal frets, just like guitars. And this instrument is tuned very high. It has 5 pairs of strings, which are tuned to this kind of this strange inside-outside tuning. The third string is the same as the first string, but the third has an octave on it. This is a really fun instrument, and I would love to give it more attention. Now, back in high school, I picked up this Kirk Hammett signature guitar, and it got a lot of love for maybe 4 or 5 years, and then I got into classical guitar, and I barely touched it. So over the last 10 years or so, it's really been, unfortunately, just collecting dust, and this is actually one of the instruments that is also for sale at the moment. I posted about that, by the way, and so many people wrote, like, don't sell it, no! But, you know, I have lots of guitars, and I'm constantly buying and selling to make room for new ones. So I'm gonna let this baby go, but it's really been a cool guitar to have. with all the, the whammy bar features you can do, the Floyd Rose system, the EMG 81 pickups, which are really rockin', the skull and crossbone inlays. It's a really fantastic guitar for metal playing, and I did a lot of, high school shredding on it. But since then, priorities change, and unfortunately, I haven't been giving it the love it deserves. Now, the two oldest instruments in my collection are from when I was around 11, with my first guitar and this bass, which actually was my older brother's, and I think I just stole it from him at some point. Both by Ibanez, or Ibanez is probably pronounced. They are both instruments we got from our local music store when we started playing so long ago, and they were the instruments that really kicked off my brothers and I with our musical playing. And I promised to never sell that first guitar. That one is too sentimental. But it's sitting in my high school bedroom right now. It's not a great guitar, but I think I'll keep it just because it was my first, And this bass, my older brother isn't playing it anymore, and so it's currently my possession, and sometimes I jam on it. I've also used it for a couple cool gigs that I've got hired for. The composers of the famous musical Les Mis, or Les Miserables, they wrote another musical in the 70s called The French Revolution, and it premiered in Chicago. That was the American premiere of it, and I was lucky enough to play some bass with my twin brother in it. And so this has got some love, but again, mostly, unfortunately, this sits in the closet, collecting a whopping amount of dust. So that's it for my personal collection. I do have a bunch of other miscellaneous instruments, percussion instruments, brass instruments, things that I've got from traveling that are on my wall just for fun, but I don't really play them. They're more, for beauty. Then I have a bunch of other instruments that I've sold in the past that I used to use, and I'm constantly changing my collection. So maybe one of these days I'll make another video if I have enough new and different instruments. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to support this channel, you can do so by becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. And lastly, there is a big discount going on at my online music school, Arpeggiato. So if you haven't signed up yet for lessons and are interested in lessons on guitar, ukulele, bass, oud, whatever, we have teachers for all of those, and we're offering a huge 20% discount on your first 4-pack. So check that out, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.